For the ears, you'll need some white yarn, your main color yarn, and your 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. For round 1 of the inner ear, you'll start with your white yarn. You're going to do a magic circle, so wrap the yarn around your fingers, reach through, bring up your loop, chain 1 to secure, and now you're going to do 6 single crochet into this magic circle. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're not going to use a stitch marker for this, but you are going to pull the tail, but you're not going to close the hole 100%. So still leave it just a little bit loose. And that is round 1, and you should have 6 stitches. For round 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn the work so you're not working in a circle. And you're going to do one increase in each stitch all the way across. So insert your hook, do your first single crochet, go back into that same stitch, and do your second one. And that is your increase. And so you're going to increase in each stitch all the way across. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I've got one more stitch here. And at this point, you should have 12 stitches. For round 3, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to do a repeating sequence of 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase. And you'll do that all the way across. So 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase, 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase, 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, increase, 1, and then increase, 1, and that final stitch gets the increase. And now you're just going to tie off. So bring your yarn through. And you don't have to leave a long tail, just long enough to weave in your end. And so you're going to make 2 of these and go ahead and weave in those ends. For the outer part of the ear, you're going to use your main color of yarn and your 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. And you're going to start with the magic circle. Chain 1 to secure, and then do 6 single crochet into that magic circle. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then just like with the inner ear, you're going to pull the tail, but you're not going to close completely up. And that's round 1, and you should have 6 stitches. For round 2, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And just like with the inner ear, you're going to do 1 increase in each stitch all the way across. And then once you've made it all the way across, you should have 12 stitches. Round 3, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and you'll do a repeating sequence of 1 single crochet followed by 1 increase, just like we did for the inner ear. So 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 single crochet, 1 increase, and you'll continue to do that until you reach the end, at which point you should have 18 stitches. Once you have finished round 3, you're ready to attach the outer ear and the inner ear. So do not cut your yarn, but you will want to go ahead and weave in this beginning tail. So just run that under a couple of stitches. And then cut off the excess. And to attach the outer ear to the inner ear, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And then we're going to take our outer ear and make sure you take the side where you cut your yarn and place it against the side that you cut your yarn, so the wrong sides together. And now you're just going to go through both the outer and the inner ear. So go in through that first stitch on the white part and in through the first stitch on the outer ear and do a single crochet. And then you'll move to the next stitch, making sure you're going through both pieces, and single crochet. And you'll just continue to do this all the way to the end. And once you reach the end, you should still have 18 stitches. And here I've gone all the way around to the end of my stitches. And now we'll chain 1, and we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches that we just made. And once you've reached the end of these, you should still have 18 stitches. Once you have finished these 18 stitches, we're going to take the ear and fold it in half. I'm going to chain 1 and go through that first stitch on this side and come across to the first stitch on the other side, and that's going to pinch it together. And we're going to do a single crochet, and then we want to close this up and hide that white part. So you're just going to take your hook only through the main color, and that way you're tucking the white part underneath and do a single crochet. And then just move to the next, going through both sides of just the main color and do a single crochet. And that will tuck that white part in so you don't see it from the outside. And just do that all the way across. And then once you've got it all closed up, you'll just do a slip stitch and tie off. And when you cut your yarn, make sure you leave a long enough tail for sewing it onto the head. And you want to make 2 of these. To attach the ears, you'll thread your yarn needle. And I've already got one on here. And we're going closer to the top of the head because the hippo's ears should be up towards the top. So we're just a few, there's our center. So we're about 4 rows away from the center. And so we'll do the same thing with the second ear. And so for the second ear, this 1, 2, 3, and you'll just check, make sure you've got them about even. And then you're just going to take your yarn needle, and you want the ears kind of facing forward. And take your yarn needle and go under a stitch in the head, and then up through a stitch in the ear. And you'll do that all the way across. So through the head, up through the ear, through the head, up through the ear. And a couple more. Make sure you don't catch the edge of the ears opening. And one last stitch. And then just to make sure that it's going to be really secure, I take my yarn needle and poke it through the head all the way back to where I started. So all the way back here. And that is where I'm going to tie off. So just take your yarn needle under a stitch. And before you pull that loop all the way closed, you're going to take your yarn needle through the loop, give it a pull to tighten up your knot, and then just take your needle through the head. And I like to go through a couple of times, so I'm just going to go back through the stitch I just came out of. Kind of wrap that yarn around the stuffing on the inside. And then you can just cut off the excess, and then that tail will be hidden inside the head. And there we go, we have attached our ears. And then you can just fix them to where they're kind of pointed forward. And there we go, we have finished the hippopotamus, and it is ready to play with.